We rocking?
We are rocking.
It's going.
I mean, it's fucking the biggest podcast was somewhere about Ned Snark. I know. That was the almost mad at him. You have to admire how grounded he is. He's remarkably grounded. He's got a smaller ego than Jonathan Thoroff.
Listen to Steve.
Oh, sure.
Fucking Thoroff.
What was that, Ned?
Listen to Steve.
I know, right? You're kind of like Kirk here. Hold it. Stop.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Stop.
Oh, for sure. He's a smaller ego. He'll have the smallest ego on that Grateful Dead podcast. I mean, just unbelievable.
God damn it. 3 losers, Ned.
Perfect.
3 fucking losers.
That's right.
I blame you, Ned.
I know.
He's the only
you're
one
dragging us.
right?
You're dragging us down.
I know. But I had no idea that was going to drop. So, you know, and we've kept this quiet. We haven't told anybody. And then Big Cat drops it on the show.
No,
so
the man.
like,
Whoa. Man.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I'm impressed that between the
it.
3 of us, nobody said anything.
That's true. That's true.
I know.
But you know, we didn't want to frighten him off, right? You know, he's a cat, so they get skittish. So we got to approach him quietly with a little bit of food, a little bit of snacks, you know,
Some
bowl of milk. And yeah, so it blew me away when that came on, because I was like, oh shit. So I guess he is serious.
I know. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, wow, this maybe sort of kind of might happen.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. It's on the to-do list.
It's on the to-do list, right? And I'm trying not to stalk him. I just one DM a week to remind him of pick a day, pick a time. We'll work with you.
Yep.
And you know, that's it. You know. So we'll see how it goes, but that is definitely the cat's out of the bag, proverbially and literally. So, you know, so it's good. So we'll see how it goes. We'll have to do a really special show for that one too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff we can talk to him about.
Yeah.
But there's more to that clip, isn't there? Or do we have the Big Cat clip?
I will say that for later.
So we're gonna start with just a show. What are we gonna, not dissection, but we're gonna like review and analyze and dive into one specific show that was we were originally gonna do this day in Grateful Dead history, which was, when we thought about it, was October 12th. So we did our studying up on October 12th, but here we are, October 13th.
Ned, this isn't gonna drop until next week. You did not need to tell anybody that.
Well, I didn't want you know, dead aficionados to say, you know, this, you know, we've already got Kirk shitting on us. I don't want dead aficionados shitting on us. So, you know, so with Kirk, it's a badge of honor. With others, you know, it's kind of a slap. So we're looking at October 12th, 1977, in a place called Manor Downs, which was outside of Austin, Texas. And the night that the Dead went on, it was reading up on the show itself. It was a very unseasonably cold night. Before the gates opened, people were burning fires in 55-gallon drums to stay warm, huddled around those things. While on another area of the grounds, there was a rodeo going on.
That's super interesting. So I didn't know any of that history, but you can hear part of the audio at some point. I think it's maybe like right before the set break or something. Bobby's like, "You guys can all huddle together to stay warm while we're gone," something like that. So I didn't know that it was cold like that. That's
so one of the versions I heard at the end, he says, "We'd like to play. Our hands are numb." So I was reading some reviews on it, and it had dropped into the, you know, for Texas, it had dropped into the upper 40s or something like that there, and lower 50s. And it was, people called it incredibly cold. I laughed.
Incredibly cold.
But
I was reading that too. Like,
with your fingers, man, that had to be brutal. 55.
I'd imagine playing guitar in 40s, not a walk in the park.
No, but remember, in the Bay Area, the summers are very cold, just like Mark Twain said. In the fall, September and October are actually relatively pleasant, like in the 70s and 80s. So that the Dead are probably used to playing in chilly, not ice cold, not Madawaska cold, but at least you know, chilly conditions. But for the Texans, this was probably cold for them, so they didn't expect it. Yeah. Interestingly, Manor Downs was built as a horse race track before Texas had legalized gambling. So they built this track build it and he will come. They built it before Texas had legalized gambling, which didn't happen, by the way, until 1990.
It's almost like the Barstool betting app, right? Build the app, they'll legalize it eventually. You know, it's coming. It's coming, Boston. It's coming.
There was a rodeo going on next door, actually, at the same time of this show.
Yep,
it's crazy.
So it must have been a typical dead environment. I would have killed to have been to a show like that because there'd be so much going on before the show.
Yeah,
and then as we'll try to play here, you know, clips from the songs that we want to talk about. The show is really good. It's a gem. And I don't know if you guys got the same impression, but it wasn't well recorded.
It was not well recorded. I was not a huge fan of the show.
Neither was
really.
I'm gonna say it. We'll go through it. I think the first, like my general. I mean, maybe we should give it a grade, like at the end of the show. But I think the first set was kind of half-assed. Like they were just going through the motions. I'd say a third of the way through the second set is when they kind of got their shit together. And I found kind of isolated, like the moment where it was like, all right, now, and then there's some great stuff late in the second set from my perspective, but not a huge fan of the show.
I look at it in a very similar way. And I actually was listening to it pretty critically and taking notes. And I was wondering, in the beginning, I thought the same thing. I thought the playing was sloppy and Jerry was fishing for notes. And I wonder at this point in 1977, right? Jerry's really into the throes of his Persian heroin addiction. You know, he started smoking Persian in 75. He was already a heavy coke user.
Yeah.
In 75, the band had their hiatus, the breakup, their label collapse. So I mean, I'm sure Jerry was sitting around with a bunch of money, doing a bunch of drugs, doing nothing but probably playing guitar, eating junk food, not taking care of himself. I mean, I was wondering if in the beginning of the show he was wasted because he smoked Persian probably backstage, and I'm obviously just speculating, but knowing what a sort of junkie he was, is he doing that in the bus and showing up to play, and then slowly but surely he kind of straightens out as the night goes on, right? Where he doesn't have an opportunity to take another hit.
I always thought the Persian thing was 78. I thought that was from the Egypt trip.
I thought so too.
He got introduced to heroin in 74 and started smoking Persian in 70. He got introduced to heroin in a brothel and then started smoking Persian in 75 on one of the Europe trips.
Oh shit.
See, I was with General Sherman on that. I thought that it was one of the bad things about the Egypt trip was he got introduced to the black tar, the dark stuff. Oh wow. So it was even earlier than that.
Either way, I'm definitely with you, Merch. I mean, you can feel he's kind of moving around and everybody's kind of fucking lazy. The first half of it just feels like lazy and flat to me. And then when they finally find it, it's like, boom, all right, here it is. And it's great.
Okay. All right.
So let's go through it. Let's set the stage.
Listen, I have to say something here. First of all, I thought the show was actually pretty good from what I was listening to. And I got through most of the show for our show. I got to give props to my girl. Donna Jean sounded pretty good. Now, usually, and Merch jumped on me before. I think
that's because they didn't play playing in the band, so she can skate.
Merch jumped on me, I think, in episode 1 or 2 when I did a side wisecrack about how bad Donna was. And I still stick by that, by the way. But in this case, she actually sounded pretty good, especially with Brown Eyed Women, where she kind of took over a lead vocal for a second, which was unusual. And I was surprised. I'm like, she doesn't normally sing that. So that must have been interesting. But okay, you're right. Maybe it was some sloppiness. I didn't really notice it that bad. I noticed the bad recording. It sounded to me, and I don't know recording, but it sounded to me like the mix was from the board. But also, like there was some audience recordings as well.
Apparently, there was something had happened to the master soundboard tape, and so people pieced in audience things back and forth. And for my money, I think they would have been better off just saying screw it, and it's just lost to the gods. And it drops out, and then it just comes back in. That kind of stuff happened in those early tapes, right? When they had possible reels of stuff or whatever, but you still listen to it. You're like, oh, and then it started up again, and like, oh, big deal. That's just sort of part of it. I kind of get what the people were doing, but I had no use for it. When it dropped into that audience recording, it was painful.
Well, it actually starts out that. Do you want me to like hit like it opened with Promised Land, and it sounds bad.
Yeah.
For the first, I want to say minute or so, and I mean I can skip through it, and then it cleans up right, and then it
They hit
cleans
that,
right up.
Yeah.
So let me see if we can get So this doesn't sound good.
Then they sort of like.
Wait till you hear the drums. Come on.
Yeah. So, part of the problem there is so the original tape there clearly has, or what the source tape for that recording that you listen to sounds like it was magnetized, and that's where you get that.
Interesting.
Thing. And it I don't know how it happens. I don't know enough about it, but I know that through like sort of extended play, I think, or use just those tapes degrade and get to a certain degree. And so I used to have a little. Did you guys have these? You definitely did not, Sherm, but Ned, did you have a demagnetizer for your tape player?
I did.
Yep,
I definitely did.
Yeah, so you put that in there every now and then. It would do whatever it did, and then
correct.
Kind of safe. You wouldn't, because if once they got marked and had that on it, it's there forever.
It's done.
Yep. So hang on, listen to this part. Listen to the drums.
I know. I was listening to that all the stuff. I have to listen to the whole show.
It's like is the microphone now like?
It's like super. Yeah.
Right inside the bass drum.
Yeah.
Here's something I picked up from this show that I realized. So I know, Ned, you had said a while ago, Promised Land. I think that was one of your recommendations a few weeks ago. I realized, and this set, it kind of irritates the shit out of me, Promised Land. Like, I appreciate it because it's a part of the catalog, and I do enjoy the song. But I felt like, especially in this set, they start out with Promised Land, and then they go into They Love Each Other.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost felt like, let's come in and do something poppy and quick and get everybody kind of, and then show how different we are with They Love Each Other. And like the whole thing. So they take a minute, they tune, they set, and then everything slows down. The time goes down. And for me, like even listening to it, it was like taking a deep breath when they finished Promised Land and then they went into They Love Each Other. It was like, okay, you kind of go from this poppy, quick, kind of dancey thing into like real, all right, now we're in the dead. Like now we're here, right?
Do you think though, because 77 was such a fantastic year for them, and you can really divide it up, right, between the spring tour with the Cornell show and the Miami show, for, a couple of those have already been, Dick's picks or Dave picks, and also the fall. And one of the first Dick's picks I bought was the September. It was like a Labor Day weekend, 77, Englishtown, New Jersey, and it's pretty much the same playlist as what we're looking at here. Not exactly. There's some differences. Because I that's one of the best shows I've ever heard, and it's one of the first CDs I got when they came out, when it was released. So I've kind of played the shit out of it, and I know it really, really well. It has my favorite Peggy O version, and my favorite They Love Each Other. So and so I really like They Love Each Other. I really like that song. Because they played it real quick in the beginning. It's one of those that they changed the arrangement later on and improved it.
No. When they slowed it down, they made it crappier. The fast
really?
Oh my god, yeah, fast song.
I like both.
Would They Love Each Other? I probably prefer a little faster, but
I went there.
Promised Land in this thing was almost like coked out fast. I mean, it was super fast. Fucking.
What I'm looking for. That's what I mean. Really, that's what I'm talking about. Pre-75, like pre-hiatus, they were cocaine heads. Post hiatus, when they came out, they only played a couple shows in 75. They hit the road again in like July 76. Jerry was a junkie. And I just confirmed that too. I'll send you from Robert Hunter. But that was when he was a heroin user, and that's when everything slowed down. And I mean, even Phil has said himself, the band was never the same after 1975. There were, for me, right, at that point, from 65 to 74, before they broke, I thought they were on top of the world. They tried new stuff. They were experimental. They played songs instead of meandering guitar solo jams. They were clever in the studio. They were experimental. After they came back, they were a touring juggernaut. And like you said, Ned, they were playing a similar set and it just started chugging along, and they lost a lot of their creativity, and they just became a machine at that point, a kind of money-making machine, and they just kind of kept going because of inertia. And I love all that stuff. I only started seeing them in '85, and I'm thankful that they kept going. But musically, they stopped doing stuff that mattered.
Yeah,
I don't know if I agree with that though. I mean, I think I feel the passion and like what I hear out of Jerry in the late 70s, 77, early like 78 is kind of my cutoff. I feel like half of 78 is really good. The other half,
yes,
like it's like, I mean, 76, a good 76 show is great, but I think like 77, you get into the best of the catalog. You got all the classics. You got Tennessee Jed and St. Stephen and all that shit. But then you're starting to introduce Estimated Prophet and Terrapin and fucking Fire on the Mountain and all that shit. Like to me, and you really get that like next level passion guitar from Jerry, but without losing it in so the early stuff, I think sometimes it just loses its way. I mean, I love it. 74, 72, I love it, but it just loses its way in the psychedelic sort of cloud, right? And I don't feel like you get that in 77.
See, I get that after 80, 81. And that's when I started seeing like in 1980 and then 81. I was seeing them in 81, 82, all the way up to the end from like really accidentally in 1980, as I talked about last week, but pretty dedicated from 81. And then when I met my wife, who was already a Deadhead, she dragged me to every show. And after a while I was dragging her, but I thought after it was the run, I think I've talked about it before, the run at Radio City Music Hall around Halloween week, 1980, when they did the acoustic set, like they used to do. Back in 69, they would do an acoustic set, then an electric set. And they did that again in 80, and it was very special. It was really good. They were playing totally different songs as well, right? Monkey and the Engineer and things like, what is it?
That's
Rounder?
actually, the Monkey and the Engineer is one of the first songs that got me into the Dead off of
Really?
Reckoning.
Reckoning.
I had as young as I am, I had a album player at the friggin' turntable in my room when I was in high school.
Album player.
Album. Couldn't think of the word. I get
these kids merch. Kids these days.
I tried to jam the album in it. It just wouldn't play. So I got the turntable and it was, I'd do the, yard sales. And this was kind of before it was trendy too, though, which was kind of the nice thing. Cause I actually got some good shit.
Yeah, get them cheap, 50 cents.
Sure.
And I got Reckoning. It was just when I was getting introduced to the Dead. And Bobby says the thing in that, I can't remember what he plays before, but he goes from a song about tragedy impending. Yeah,
tragedy narrowly averted.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That is a good one.
And that was like, there was just something about that moment, and then the silliness of the song that ensued. I was like, this is fantastic.
Well, it was one of those when my besides playing regular Dead stuff, when my kids were toddlers, like 4 and 1.5, or I think they're 3 years apart, so 5 and 2. That's the song they'd always request,
Nice.
Put on Monkey the Engineer, because it's a little kid song,
Yeah, I used to be, so in my prior life, I owned a daycare with my wife. And during that time, I started writing children's music. And we had a full band, and we used to play for libraries and daycares and camps and stuff. But Monkey and the Engineer was always one of the songs that we played.
Awesome.
And every now and then, a father would come up and say, "Ha, that's very funny."
I like
it. It's kids' party.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Garcia did. You ever listen to "Not for Kids Only"? The Garcia Grossman album, right? So, and one of my more hippie moments. So I had that, but I had lost like the crystal. I had the CD, but I love the CD. Just the beauty of it. And I found out this was like right after college, and I should say a few years after college. I was working in this tile store, slinging tile, and my manager had a kid, and I was like, "Oh man, that's super exciting. That's great." But I had no money. I was like broke. The only thing I had to offer this guy, and he was like a semi-deadhead. It was like, here's this CD, like, nice. Please take this. But I think he like truly appreciated like the sentiment, because it was like, man, this costs $15. That's a lot for me. Like, it's this dirty hand smudged CD.
Take a large percentage of your money.
Right. That's like 4 hours of work back then.
All right. So I actually lost my list here. It was Promised Land, and it was They Love Each Other. What was after that?
Me and My Uncle.
Was quick. For this one. Quick. This one for me was disappointing because I like the sort of, if we're going back to the first live album, the Skull and Roses, Me and My Uncle, where it's two-step. It's cowboys. Boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap. And this one's like boom, boom, bap, boom, boom, bap. And I was just like, oh, yeah. I felt like I was just waiting for it to finish and go on.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I think again, I'm a huge one drummer guy, right? I loved it. I love Mickey, but I loved it when Mickey left the band, just because I think Bill is such a clever, crafty drummer and perfect for that band, and ebbs and flows with them really well. And when you get behind, when all of a sudden you get the monstrosity of the two of them, and they just start kind of chugging, right? And you got to go with the chug, and they both kind of have to lay into that rhythm that they put down.
And I love Bobby's cowboy songs. Love them.
Me too. Totally.
And that was like, my aha moment when, my wife, when we were first dating, and I'd go to her apartment and she'd just put on the albums. And I okay, Grateful Dead. Okay. Wow. Great. But then boom, you get like, that is a pure kick-ass country song. And then there's another one. And then there's another one. Like, and I actually would look at her, I'm like, are they a country band? And she's like, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and that's what we think we find out. I think we've had this discussion before, and if not, it's definitely warranted. Is even Kirk on the show, was it with his interview last week with the guy on Van Halen, which was a great interview.
Yeah.
But he said, I hate the Grateful Dead. Just sing the song. He doesn't like the long, drawn out instrumental jams, which that's what people think of. And the Dead are a lot more than just that. They're a lot more.
People that don't like them should listen to the albums. They
Correct.
Listen to people's tapes. They shouldn't listen to their stoner.
Well, that's how you get into it, right?
I mean, tapes where they're just like, good God, what is still going on? The 40-minute playing or something, a full side of a tape. They should listen to the albums, because they write songs, and they put together crafty, well put together songs where they don't waste any time. Working Man's Dead would be right up Kirk's alley.
Correct. And and most of the people who say that, or most of the reasons why people say they don't like the Dead, is because they've not really heard the Dead beyond album AOR Radio.
Yeah.
Truckin', Casey Jones, Sugar Magnolia. And that's really about it. They haven't really heard it because it didn't get much airplay. And it really never did until, like Sirius and these dedicated radio station channels. Or when I was a kid, maybe you too, Merch, they used to have local programming where they would play. There was like an 11 o'clock show on a radio station that would play stuff you wouldn't get at 9 o'clock on your rock and roll station. And that's where you would get like, New Riders of the Purple Sage or Spirit, or, groups that how come I've never heard this music before?
Yeah.
And so that's my thing with people who don't like the Dead, is they haven't really listened.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where you have to go into it with an intentionally open mind and sort of like exploring other things. Like if you're set in a certain like, oh, I like this, then there's no like it's just not going to happen. You have to. They're just different, right? There's you can compare them. They're kind of like this. There's a little flavor of that, a little bit of that, but you just kind of have to mind wide open to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So next we got what? Passenger.
No, the next was Candyman.
Oh, Candyman.
Candyman.
Which I'm trying to get that up and going. I think that, again, a poor recording. I think Jerry's levels were down too low.
Yeah, his vocals are pretty low for a lot of the night.
Oh yeah, especially the first.
But really, I mean, his singing is starting to fail at this point.
Yeah. Sorry, Merch. Just another slow song.
I know. I'm not a big fan of Candyman.
I don't love Candyman either.
I like Candyman. I do.
So here's another thing on this first set. Promised Land, They Love Each Other, Candyman, Passenger, El Paso, Lazy Lightning,
Brown-Eyed Women.
I'm just so those six songs that I just called out, I would never like choose a set to listen or a show to listen to on any of those six songs. And then you just mash them up in here and it's like, I love Brown-Eyed Women. I
Passenger.
love Friend of the
I
Devil.
see what you're saying.
But
what I like about Passenger is that Jerry plays like the distorted guitar instead of Sherm, you were freezing on me. I like that he plays like that distorted rock and roll guitar instead of that envelope, is that classic Jerry wah, 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 wah thing.
Yeah.
So I do like that. Keith, I couldn't hear really very much at all. Like most of the night, this one in particular, I thought his piano sounded like a little sort of toy Casio kind of thing.
Right.
But I thought he was.
Oop, Merch just froze.
Merch froze. He was trying to blame it on me.
You're froze, right?
He was trying to blame it on me.
There you go. Okay, you just unfroze. Good. So you talk about the Casio piano tinklings of.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought Keith's tone sounded weird and lousy.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Recording.
Yeah, it could have been absolutely.
Because that's one of the things when Deadheads have the Pigpen and Tom and Keith and Brent debate. You know, that's my thing about Brent is I don't really like his voice. Don't kill me. And I really don't like I appreciate his enthusiasm because he did bring a lot of life behind the keyboards, but I don't like the electronic keyboard sound. Keith played a baby grand. So, and I like the sound of a real piano. And I liked Pigpen's, the organ playing by Pigpen too, by the way. And they never did replace that.
And I thought I don't want to jump too far ahead. I know we're 25 minutes in, so I don't know if we want to go through all of them. But so friend of the devil, I thought Keith was fantastic. Like, yes, there was some real good Keith that just popped out at me on Friend of the Devil. That was the one spot that.
And by the way, this is a song that I don't like the slowed down. I appreciate it. I don't like the slowed down version. I like the
Friend of the Devil.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Again, that's one of those cool cowboy tunes, right? If they do
it's a little. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it, but I love the original cut from Working Man's Dead.
Yeah.
So then, really, at this point, I think we go to Brown Eyed Women. And so for me, this is where I think Jerry started to wake up. The intro is super crisp. He flies through the notes and hits all the notes instead of sort of like we got really easy on Jerry after a while. We had listened to him for so long, and all of the solos so well that when he's hacking his way up and down the fretboard some nights and hitting only 2/3 of the notes, where you hear it in your head, right? Well, and you're like, oh,
you know where it's supposed to be. Yeah.
And when you listen, but this is where I thought he really kind of woke up in the solo when he starts running up and down the neck. He's up in the high parts and he's down, back like real Jerry hitting all those scales all the way down the fretboard. This was tons of fun for me. This is where I thought it kind of picked up.
Yeah. You think it picked up earlier than I did? Well earlier than I did. But
well, I also thought it got really going with Brown Eyed Women, and again. Because I was impressed with Donna. I mean, I love this song.
Donna was good. I'll give Donna credit on this one.
Yep.
I love good Donna is great when she's just a little something, a little harmony. She's fantastic. But when she starts wailing, sometimes it's like, oh Lord.
Merch, I got to ask you because you're the musician of the group. So my wife and I have had this argument. We're both in agreement, by the way. In fact, when we're in the car alone and we're listening to the Dead and I'm driving and she's like doing something else. And it comes to a part where Donna just wails out of key. My wife will always say, Donna. But
she says, just got Tourette's or something.
She thinks, and maybe that's why I'm asking you, she thinks she can't hear her own voice. So she doesn't know that she's
that's Donna's complaint. So apparently Donna used to sing, actually sang sessions for Elvis at one point.
Yeah, backup. Yep.
So she was a real pro. And I've heard her sing in the past, after the Dead, sort of as part of sort of all-star Jerry tribute things. And she definitely can sing, and that's what it was. It was just, I think it was so damn loud up there that she was just screaming at the top of her lungs sometimes just to try to get in there, a sliver of Donna in there, and it was a train wreck.
Then the question is, why wasn't whoever was running the board just lower her levels?
So really what they should have done is they should have turned her up in the monitor. So she could have heard herself. So the monitors of the speakers would blow back at the people in the band, and by the end they had them in their ears. But at that point they had speakers that faced them, and so they just should have turned her up in the monitor. Then she could have heard herself, and she wouldn't have had to be like, wah! Just so she could hear something. And I think she would have been better off there. I don't know why they didn't do that. They were probably just too wasted.
Well, and that was the wall. That was the wall of sound too, right? Previously, and it's one of the things that Bear did so well, and he was the first to do it. Was if you look at all the old vintage, say Beatles and Stones from the early and mid 60s, the speakers are like little amplifier speakers and they're facing the band. So as they're playing the music, it's coming right back at them. Or it's catching the echo off of the building, the sonic sound of the building that they're in. Some buildings are better and more suitable. So when Jimi Hendrix saw that Bear for the Dead had put the speakers behind them so they could hear the music coming past them, that he did the same thing.
Oh, how do you like that?
Yep,
Interesting.
and they all did it after they saw that, and they heard the difference, that they can now hear themselves, not a reflection of, not a blowback of themselves. So when they broke down the wall of sound, I guess they didn't continue to do that. They didn't have the speakers up, I guess. So, but yeah, it's she actually sounds pretty good in this. So I have to give her props.
So then where would we go? El Paso after that?
So then it was El Paso, correct?
El Paso was up and down. I love El Paso, but I thought this was up and down because when Jerry's really hot and he can hit all those notes and he's just flicking all over the place, but it's really wonderful. But if it's not, it's just kind of a little meander.
It's another song they jam in there. Yep.
And to me, with almost any version of El Paso, it's the lyrics, because it's a great song. It's a Marty Robbins classic. You know, when my dad's like, oh, I don't really know the Grateful Dead, I used to put on, El Paso, and he's like, oh, that's Marty Robbins. I'm like, oh, yeah, it is. But and because there's a lot. It's one of those songs, if you're trying to learn, it takes a long time to learn those lyrics, because they're
Oh yeah.
And they're very intricate. And if Bobby is rushing through it or slurs it up, it's terrible. So he has to kind of sing and enunciate clearly when he sings.
Yeah.
He does sort of that voice thing, especially bad in this one, where he's doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, come on, it's so fake. It's like, come on. That bugged me. I don't know. I'm down on this whole first set. Like this whole first set, I'm like, I don't know.
The first set tonight. We'll do the second set next week.
Oh shit! So I'm just gonna shit all over it.
Sure. We're trying to entice Minifans to listen to the Grateful Dead. You can't shit on the show.
Well, if they're not a Deadhead, they probably haven't listened this far into it.
No, that's right.
And if they have, they'll appreciate my honesty. Right?
That's actually very true.
Now we go to the slow, Friend of the Devil, and I think we've already sort of touched on it a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of the slow. I like the really peppy version. It's as simple as that. I like it when it's a cowboy song. I like
with you 100%.
Yeah.
Totally.
Next one was Lazy Lightning.
Yeah, so Sherm, you're not a fan of Lazy Lightning, or it's a throwaway, you can take it or leave it?
The only reason I like Lazy Lightning is to get to Supplication. It's like
me too.
Like
that's perfect. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not one of my favorites, but I know what's coming. I know what's coming next.
It's a Bobby kind of thing that he does too.
I've got my notes right here. It says Lazy Lightning. I like it because it's in that weird time signature, but the best part is when they go to Supplication.
So
we agree.
So that is one thing that I noticed. So we touched on that Michael Palmisano thing from Estimated Prophet. So in that clip, he breaks down how Estimated Prophet's in sevens, which I'm not a musician and I never realized. But then on this, because I had listened to that breakdown of Estimated Prophet, you hear Bobby call out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was like, oh shit! So this is in sevens too. So kind of something I picked up on just in the last.
A little more force. The Estimated thing has such a great slinky thing to it, right? This one seems like it's almost a little too hard sometimes for them to keep up with it, and they get that lag where they jump back into the one sometimes. And I kind of like it just because it's an effort to do something weird and interesting, but this one I think is a better studio song than it is a concert song.
There's one version of it I've heard that I liked, and it's 5:15 in 1980. Yep, Nassau Coliseum. That's the only.
But the Supplication, what do you guys?
Solid.
Yep.
Solid. Yep.
I like it because they get away from having to sort of follow Bobby's singing.
Correct. It gives you a little break.
Yep.
Correct. But it's always I always like Supplication though.
Definitely.
So so that's a solid one. The next is Deal.
Yep. I'm a big fan of Deal. Big fan of Deal.
It's my top 10 favorite songs for sure. Dead songs. Yep.
It was, and this one again. I thought Jerry was sort of alive here. He's real clear notes. He's not fishing, kind of leaning into it. He's hitting it. The runs are crisp,
and it's fast. It's quick.
So what I missed on this one is there's that big spot, and I don't know how to describe it musically, but there's that one spot right after the vocals where they just lay into Jerry just lays into typically that big solo.
Yep.
And I just felt like it was good, it was solid from a technical perspective, like it was clean and crisp and all that, but it was not passionate. Like I just didn't feel it. Like
right.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for Deal, and so I do like when bands cover it. I know a couple of bluegrass bands that cover it, and they really rip it really fast. And I always do imagine it that way. And then sometimes when they play it slow, I'm like, oh, that's right.
Again, you know, this was on Jerry's first solo album, so this wasn't really a Dead song.
Yep.
And again, my wife had that as well, and I listened to that and fell in love with the song the first second I heard it. Again, a pure country song, especially on the album.
Similarly, this is the only Dead song my wife will listen to, but she listens to the Dead and Company version. But she's got like a live John Mayer. But I'm like, it's something like you know.
But but you know, some show we're gonna have to do themes because we got back-to-back themes that we could talk about because the Dead, you know, their themes are jail, card playing like Deal. Sure. Railroads, and also Bible songs or songs.
That could be the Kirk Minihane connection.
Well, that was that. See, Merch, great minds are thinking alike because that's exactly how I was going to tie it in when we do that episode, right? But also, the next song is Samson and Delilah.
Well, that's second set, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I guess so. Yes.
Yep. So then we get set break.
So we had a set break, but it's something we should talk about too, is because I love whether it's a cover or it's a Hunter written. They're Old Testament songs. They've got a lot of them. People don't realize that either. Yeah. That they've got a ton of like stuff based on Old Testament stories. Samson and Delilah is going to be the one we're going to start with as just one example.
Yeah.
So I always like that too about the Dead because
I'll give everybody a little taste of maybe what's to come.
I have a standing. I have to set a date with Ned Stark to do their Grateful Dead show. So I'm going to do that.
What a low. You're above that. Don't do that. Please don't.
No, I'm a loyal Minifan. Why the hell can I?
Loyal Minifan.
How great is that? I'm a loyal Minifan.
I'm a loyal Minifan.
Right?
Gonna do his duty.
Because
you don't want me to do that, I won't do it. I'll do it.
You can do whatever. I hate the Grateful Dead, by the way.
Yeah, you would. You probably never. Well, no, you've never like smoked pot, eat mushrooms. Like you're too.
I hate endless jams.
There you go. Yeah, that's the quote.
And the whole second set. So just for a little teaser there too, you go estimated profit into He's Gone, into drums, into the other one, into Black Peter, into trucking, into Nobody's Fault But Mine before you even stop playing. I mean, that's one long ass song.
And before we go, just to touch on that, Big Cat didn't go where I thought he was going to go because I burst out laughing. First, I was in shock. I'm like, oh shit, they're talking about the show. And then he's like, I'm going to do it. But if you don't want me to do it, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Right. And I was like, oh shit. And then he goes, I hate the Grateful Dead. And without missing a beat, because I thought the same thing. It's like, of course you would. And he's like, of course you do. But instead of saying, because you've never been happy or you don't know how to be happy, he's like, well, you've never done mushrooms. No, Kirk's probably never done mushrooms or smoked.
So an interesting story that I just have to tell because you brought that up. So it was actually Dead and Company, and I ran into. So we were up. A buddy of mine, he's got good friends who works for. I don't know whether it's the Bruins or the TD Bank North Garden, but they work for like the ticketing for the venue. So whenever there's a big show like that goes without getting sold out, they'll have suites. They'll have the friggin' boxes, the suites. And that's where people never buy tickets. So we can call her last minute and be like, hey, if you got any open suites, let us know. We'll take them. And she'll sell them to us for $50 a pop. So we got in there for Dead and Company. This was fall, I don't know, 2-3 years ago at TD Bank North. And we were up there and it was just the three of us in a suite with service watching friggin' Dead and Company. And we saw down in the crowd this like metalhead buddy of ours from back in high school. And it's like, what the fuck is that guy doing here? Like that guy, like, it's just like the guy that you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing at a Dead show? Right. So we start waving to him. And finally, he comes on up, climbs up over the thing into the box, and we're just shooting the shit with him. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And I was talking to him. He's like, I don't know who this is. I don't know anything about him. I just was interested. I like music, so I figured I'd give it a shot. It's like, all right, cool. Well, I kind of gave him my 2 cents and whatever. Kind of thing goes on. Night goes on. About 30 minutes later, I'm standing in front of him. He just taps me on the shoulder. I just feel this tap, and I turn around. He's like, he just looks at me and he goes, I get it. It's about joy. It's
there
joy.
You go.
It's
there
joy, man. Like it's just about feeling good and joy. And I was like, dude, there's deadheads who have been listening to this for a long ass time who could not sum it up that concisely.
Correct.
Like it's just about joy.
All right,
That's
play
correct.
us out, Ned. Pick something.
So, what do you guys want to go into? Samson and Delilah?
Sure,
Tennessee?
we'll give you a little taste.
Start with that.
All right, boys and girls, we'll see you next time. We're gonna break down the second set next time. Maybe we'll do it with Big Cat.
No, we have a Big Cat special show.
I like it.
Oh yeah. So let me try to get it's getting going. So here we go. So we'll bid you good night.
Oh, we should play that sometime.
And we bid you good night.